The battlefield was quiet, dead quiet. Alien bodies lay scattered across the red dirt, their green blood soaking the ground. The wind carried a strange smell, something sharp, bitter, and unnatural. It came from the blue fruit that grew all around, them small, glowing, berry-like things hanging from thorny plants to the aliens. It was known as mrak, the forbidden fruit. One bite, and even the strongest alien soldier would drop dead in seconds. The aliens had used it as a weapon. They thought it was perfect. Humans wouldn't survive it. No species ever had. They were wrong. From the middle of the battlefield, a figure moved, slowly, calmly. It was a human. His armor was broken. His face was dirty. A long cut ran down his arm, blood dripping. But he didn't fall. He didn't scream. He didn't die. He walked through the poisonous plants like they were nothing. His boots crushed the berries underfoot. He didn't care. High above him, an alien scout drone hovered, silently recording. The human paused, looked straight at it. Then, without a word, he bent down and picked one of the deadly blueberries. The drone zoomed in, trying to understand. The human held the fruit between his fingers. He smiled and ate it. Far away, inside a hidden alien command ship, the footage played on a giant screen. Generals and commanders watched in shock. The room was silent. No one could believe what they were seeing. That's impossible, whispered General Cthulhu. That fruit kills on contact. It melts the inside of our lungs. He should be dead already. Another officer said, this has to be a trick. But at WAS in single quotes T. The human chewed slowly, then swallowed the berry and stood still. Alive. Unharmed. The drone feed crackled, then zoomed out. Around the human, dozens of alien soldiers were lying dead. They had eaten the fruit by mistake, thinking it was safe in that region. But the poison had spread through the soil. It had turned the land into a death trap. Only the human remained standing. One man, against an army. His name was Commander Elias Kane. Before the war, he was a biologist. Now, he was the last survivor of Recon Unit 7. His team had been sent into the zone to investigate the alien secret weapon. None of them made it back except him, but even Kane hadn't planned this. He had collapsed 3 days ago, coughing and bleeding. He had thought he would die. But he did in single quotes T. Something inside him had changed. He remembered the pain, the fever, the burning in his chest. His skin peeled, his muscles ached, and his veins felt like fire. But then, it stopped. His body fought back, adapted, evolved. And now, the very thing that killed thousands of soldiers was his weapon. Kane walked across the battlefield, stepping over alien corpses. He saw a broken alien helmet and kicked it aside. His communicator was damaged, but a few lights still blinked. Static buzzed in his ear. Then, a voice, Kane, are you there? Respond. He grabbed the device. This is Kane, he said, voice dry. Zone 6 is clear. Double quote static. Then another voice came through, softer, fearful. Kane, how are you alive? He looked at the drone, still following him. I adapted. He stopped again, looked at another plant. It shimmered under the sun. He picked another fruit. This time, to berries. Tell your commanders, he said, speaking directly to the drone. The poison doesn't work anymore. He popped both berries into his mouth. Chewed. Swallowed. Smiled. Inside the alien ship. Panic began to spread. Officers shouted. Commands flew. Scientists checked the data again and again. No answers. How can one human survive? Cthulhu growled. Another. Alien spoke, slowly. What if it's not just one? Everyone stopped. The idea was terrifying. If one human had adapted, could others follow? Back on the battlefield, King climbed a small ridge and looked out across the wasteland. In the distance, he saw another blue field, another poison zone, and he knew what he had to do. This was just the beginning. The aliens thought they had found the perfect weapon, but they had made one big mistake. They tested it on a human. Last line for suspense. King turned to the drone. One last time, his voice calm and deadly. Now, let's see how fast your army can run. The alien warship floated above the poison valley like a dark shadow inside its cold steel hulls. The high command stood around a glowing war table. Red holograms showed a human figure, Commander Elias Kane, moving freely through a zone that should have been deadly. They had watched him eat mrak, the forbidden fruit. He had survived. Even smiled. It wasn't just strange. It was terrifying. This is not natural, hissed General Cthulhu, his spiked jaw twitching with rage. Humans are weak, filthy. They do not survive this. Commander Ravak, head of elite operations, stepped forward. His armor gleamed black like polished stone. A cold silence followed his heavy steps. Permission to deploy the Shadow Hunters, Ravak said. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at the supreme strategist. No survivors. The strategist said after a pause, "Bring me his head, and bring the body for study." Ravak nodded once. Then he vanished into the shadows, far below. Kane had made camp inside a broken alien bunker, half buried in vines and twisted metal. He sat near a small fire, chewing dry rations. His helmet lay beside him, cracked from earlier battles. His body still felt strange. Hot. Awake. His senses had changed. He could hear tiny insects crawling behind walls, smell ash on the wind, feel vibrations in the dirt, even when nothing moved. He was becoming something else, not alien, not human. Something in between. He knew the aliens had seen the footage. He knew they'd come, but he didn't run. Instead, he waited. At midnight, they came. 3 shadows moved across the hills, silent, invisible. They wore pressurized black suits, immune to the berry's poison. Each carried advanced plasma blades and dart guns. The Shadow Hunters were born killers used only for the most dangerous targets. Tonight, that target was Kane. One hunter climbed down the ridge silently, another circled through the trees. The third stood on a high cliff, scanning Kane's position through infrared goggles. Target confirmed, one whispered. He's alone, breathing steady. No visible traps. But Kane wasn't sleeping. He was pretending. He smiled in the dark, because he could smell them. The first hunter stepped into the ruined bunker doorway, blade raised. Kane moved like lightning. He grabbed the alien's arm, twisted hard, and slammed it into the wall. The armor cracked. Kane drove a broken metal rod into the hunter's side. A hiss of alien blood sprayed out. The second hunter fired darts, but Kane rolled behind the wall, grabbed a handful of nrak berries from a satchel he had collected earlier, and hurled them. The darts missed, but the berries didn't. They burst against the alien suit. Juice soaked the armor. A second later, the alien gasped. His rebreather hissed as poison seeped inside through a tiny crack. He dropped, twitching. The third hunter panicked. He launched a flare. Kane sprinted up the ridge, faster than the alien expected. He tackled the hunter off the cliff. They hit the ground hard. The hunter reached for his blade, but Kane was already on top of him. "You came to hunt," Kane said softly, "but this jungle doesn't belong to you anymore." And with one final strike, it was over. High above, Alien Command received the live feed. All 3 hunters dead, Kane still alive. Cthulhu slammed his claw on the control panel. He used the berries as weapons. He planned for them, the scientist whispered, wide-eyed. He knew they were coming. Another officer said, and then the worst truth came to light. Kane had used their strongest, most protected soldiers to spread their own poison. When their suits cracked, the nrak-berry toxin soaked into their bloodstream. Kane had weaponized what was supposed to be alien-only death. He had turned it into a human advantage. Back at the ruined bunker, Kane stood over the bodies. He collected the weapons, checked the suits, and placed more berries inside them. He wasn't just surviving. He was preparing. That night, he recorded a message. He faced the same scout drone, hovering again in the sky. "This is Commander Elias Kane," he said. "You sent assassins. They failed. Now I'm sending them back to you." He tied the dead hunters to an old alien transport drone and activated its beacon. Before it lifted off, he placed something in the pilot's seat, a bowl filled with nrak berries. Final line for suspense as the drone flew back toward the alien capital. Kane whispered into the wind, "Come again, and I'll teach more of you how it tastes." The alien drone crashed into the landing bay of their fortress like a warning shot from hell. Guards rushed in, weapons raised only to freeze in horror. Tied to the drone's transport arms were 3 dead bodies, their best hunters, elite warriors. But it wasn't the corpses that sent panic through the base. It was what rested in their laps. A metal bowl, filled with the forbidden nrak berries. A message was carved crudely into a torn piece of human armor strapped to the drone's front. "Send more. I'm still hungry." Kingthroom went silent. Some officers vomited. Others ran to quarantine rooms. Only one word echoed in every alien's mind now: monster. But back on Earth, Kane had never been alone. Not really. 5 years earlier, a massive underground facility lay hidden beneath the Himalayan mountains. Few on Earth knew about it. Fewer still had entered it. It was called Project Genesis. The goal was simple but terrifying: build a new kind of human, one who didn't just survive alien environments, one who thrived in them. Aliens had discovered hundreds of planets, each one rich with resources, but humans were always one step behind, one war away from extinction. Earth's leaders realized something: if humans couldn't match alien technology, they'd have to evolve faster, and so they created them, the Genesis operatives. Selected from elite special forces, survivalists, and scientists. They were trained for every hell imaginable: poison jungles, acid rain, radiation storms, ice moons, fungal air, parasites that burrowed into bones. And still, they survived. No, they adapted. With each trauma, their bodies responded, changed, rebuilt. And when exposure wasn't enough, scientists helped speed it up: gene editing, viral resistance, controlled infections, pain tolerance pushed to the edge. One of the first test subjects was a young soldier named Elias Kane. He wasn't the strongest, but he was the one who never gave up. He survived the cold when others froze. He drank water that burned skin and lived. His eyes bled, his bones broke, but his mind stayed sharp. And when his lungs almost collapsed from fungal gas, he stood up and asked for more. Project Genesis had found its perfect prototype, but Kane wasn't the only one. Now, present day, in a dark cryo chamber far beneath Earth's surface, red lights began to blink, monitors beeped, coda tanks hissed. A voice echoed through the control room: "Awaken operatives 002 through 007. Confirm Kane's survival. The enemy has seen what's coming." Inside the pods, 6 figures lay still: men, women, soldiers, monsters in human skin. One had metal shrapnel grafted into his bones, immune to electric shock. One had eyes that could see in ultraviolet, infrared, and even through walls. One could breathe underwater longer than dolphins. Another could digest pure toxins and turn them into muscle fuel. These weren't humans anymore. They were evolution's answer to extinction. Back in the alien capital, panic turned into full-blown fear. More reports came in. Poison zones no longer. Stop the enemy. Cities lost contact. Entire patrol teams went dark. Strange messages were found near their bodies. "You brought poison. We brought evolution." Alien generals began calling for retreats. Scientists tried to study Kane's blood sample, but couldn't understand it. His cells regenerated too fast. His DNA changed with every breath. "He's not stable," one alien researcher whispered. "He's not supposed to be," replied another. "That's the point." At the edge of Sector 19, the alien scouts watched through binoculars. A human figure was standing on a cliff, looking at the horizon. "Kane," one scout whispered. "No." The other one said slowly, "There are 2. The second figure appeared beside Kane, taller, wearing different armor, long scar down her face. She smiled as well. The scouts panicked and ran. Kane looked over at her. "You're late," he said. "Traffic and cryostasis." She smirked. "Nice war zone you've made." "Welcome back, Jules." She tossed him a fruit. "A raspberry." Kane caught it. She took one too. They both ate. At the same time, in orbit, alien surveillance picked up to new heat signatures, then a third, then 5, then 10, and rising. "This is not war," the alien prime minister said, trembling. "This is extinction with a human face." Final line suspenseful. "Hook," as dawn rose over the poison valley. More shadows stepped forward, each wearing Earth's flag and each holding the fruit that once killed them. They were no longer the prey. They were the cure to fear. The alien news channels couldn't keep up. One report called them ghosts and poison, another, the deathless, and another, even more terrifying, the humans who eat death. Panic echoed across the stars. Every outpost, colony, and military station under alien command received the same encrypted alert. Avoid Sector 19. Operative Kane is active. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. But it was too late. Fear had already taken root. In the outer colonies of the Volume Terra system, soldiers refused to patrol in rack zones. Rumors spread faster than plasma fire. They said humans were now immune to the sacred poisons, that they breathed the air that melted lungs and walked through gas like sunlight. A shuttle pilot abandoned his post after seeing a video, grainy, shaky, but clear. It showed Kane and another human Jules laughing as they crushed raspberries underfoot. Behind them, dozens more human shapes appeared. No armor, no helmets. Just people. Smiling, marching. Undefeated. One alien soldier watched the clip and whispered, "They're not afraid of us anymore." Inside a military base on planet Grakal, Commander Thune slammed his fist against the war table. "This is nonsense," he roared. "We outnumber them, outgun them, and we control the atmosphere." But even as he shouted, his soldiers backed away. No one would meet his eyes. They had seen the message Kane sent. It wasn't just the returned bodies of the dead hunters. It was what came after. A viral video had leaked, clearly recorded by a drone. The footage showed Kane walking alone into an alien settlement. His arms were raised and armed. He sat down calmly in the central plaza. Alien civilians screamed and ran. Soldiers opened fire. Kane didn't run. He took a berry from his pocket, ate it. Then he stood up, and nothing happened. Bullets hit him. Some bounced off. Some tore flesh, but he didn't fall. He whispered something to the camera before walking away into the blue mist. "We're done dying. It's your turn now." Alien soldiers began defecting. Whole squads dropped weapons and fled their posts. Commanders issued orders. None were followed. One soldier was seen burning a field of rag plants while crying, shouting, "We gave them God's poison and now it feeds them." On the moon of Sarfor, an alien medic discovered a horror. She ran tests on a fallen Genesis operative's blood sample. The results showed human DNA that wasn't static. It morphed in real time. She ran to her general. "This is an evolution." She stammered. It's revenge coded into biology." Meanwhile, Kane and Jules stood on a ridge, overlooking the alien city of Zakharin. It was the last major city before the capital planets. Behind them, more Genesis operatives gathered. Not soldiers, weapons in human form. One had claws like obsidian. Another had black veins glowing with energy. All of them bore scars from past wars, but none looked broken. Jules watched the city through binoculars. "They're evacuating," she said. "Good," Kane replied. Scared, Kane shook his head. "Not yet, but they will be." Inside Zakharin, alien citizens tried to flee. Trains overflowed. Spaceports locked down. Police shouted for calm, but the screens across the city betrayed the truth. On every wall, Kane's face played on loop, smiling, calm, holding the blue fruit in his hand. The video was hacked. No one could turn it off. One caption blinked beneath it. "You use this to kill. We use it to live." A child asked his mother, "Is that a monster?" The mother shook her head slowly. "No, my son, that is a human." In the Capital War Council, leaders screamed at each other. "We underestimated Earth. They were dying. We had them. They turned our greatest weapon into their food." One quiet voice finally spoke. The Prime strategist, who hadn't moved in hours. "We gave them pain," he said. "We gave them fear. And somehow, they made it a seed, and now it grows." Back at the ridge, Kane picked up a handful of raspberries and scattered them like ashes into the wind. "Funny," Jules said. "They called it forbidden, deadly, divine." Kane shrugged. "It was just fruit," he replied, "until they turned it into a weapon." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "We're not the same anymore." "No," Kane said. "We're worse." He turned to the group behind him. "Let's go." As the sun set, the humans moved toward Zakharin, not like an army, but like a storm. No banners, no songs. Just quiet footsteps. And every step told the same story. "We survived your worst. Now taste ours." Final line for suspense, and in every alien city across the stars, one sound echoed louder than alarms, louder than sirens. A human voice, whispering over stolen speakers, "Fear us now." The sky above Zakharin turned orange with smoke, but it wasn't from battle. It was from burning weapons, alien weapons that no longer worked. Civilians lit bonfires in fear, tossing out anything that had touched the forbidden fruit. Rack, poison canisters, toxin bombs, gas grenades, even their own food rations, just in case. Because somewhere out there, humans were coming, and nothing could stop them now. On the walls of Zakharin's central lab, massive displays blinked warnings. In every language, toxin failure detected, bioweapon ineffective. Immunity confirmed in Subject HO7. Subject HO7 was a Genesis soldier named Delia Mar, who had walked into a gas test chamber meant to kill any species in seconds. He stayed there for 5 minutes, came out laughing, asked for food. Then did it again without a suit. Aliens had spent years developing these tools. Toxins that killed on touch. Darts that shattered bones. Clouds that ate flesh. All designed for maximum pain. And now, the humans were breathing it in like fresh air. Some soldiers even claimed they saw Kane inhale alien nerve gas just to prove a point, and exhale slowly like it was nothing. At a remote weapons facility orbiting the ice planet Nurlock 3, General Verk watched the test screen. They had captured one of the newer Genesis operatives, a woman with silver eyes and a skin graft over half her face. They called her Uni 9. She stood, locked inside a clear chamber, wearing only a thin tunic. Begin. Test, Verk ordered. A green fog hissed into the chamber, a compound that once melted lungs within seconds. Uni 9 didn't flinch. Her skin shimmered. Her breath remained calm. After 10 seconds, she smiled at the camera and whispered, "It feels like summer." Verk screamed, "More, release the next gas." They did. Then the next, and another. At one point, a scientist cried out, "She's absorbing it. Look, her skin is changing colors." And it was her body wasn't fighting the toxins. It was learning from them. K turned pale. "We've made them stronger." On the battlefield, Kane and Jules led their team through another devastated outpost. Alien corpses were scattered, but none from human fire. They had died trying to use their own weapons. A large dart launcher was turned sideways, still clutched in an alien's hand. The dart had exploded inside the chamber. Next to it, a melted helmet. "It backfired?" Jules asked, kneeling beside it. Kane nodded. "They used toxin blades. But the poison vapor didn't just fail, it changed direction." "How?" Kane picked up a piece of the blade and held it toward the air. It began to dissolve in his hand. "The air itself is changing," he said. Jules narrowed her eyes. "You think we're rewriting their environment?" Kane looked up toward the distant towers. "No," he said softly. "I think our bodies are." At the alien capital command, leaders held emergency meetings. Every war simulation they ran ended in failure. Every chemical they tested became fuel for human evolution. Even our most sacred weapons? One scientist asked. "Yes," replied the lead researcher. "Our holy war gas, the Black Cloud, was deployed yesterday, and it spread across the battlefield as planned. But when the humans walked through it, they didn't fall." The council leaned forward. They glowed. "What?" Their skin turned dark, their eyes lit with green fire. One of them shouted something. "What?" We ran the translation. The scientist hesitated, then said it aloud. "More." Across the galaxy, alien soldiers were quitting. Some cut off their own command chains and fled to the outer systems. Others surrendered before humans even arrived. But the worst moment came when an alien general tried to kill a captured Genesis operative. Using a sacred poison dagger passed down from ancient times, he stabbed the human in the heart. The human laughed, pulled the dagger out, and the wound closed in seconds. The general dropped the blade, fell to his knees, and whispered, "We have become ants." Kane stood in a broken cathedral, now turned into base camp. Genesis operatives gathered around him. Behind them, hundreds of human scientists, survivors. New recruits were landing through covert drops. Humanity wasn't dying. It was multiplying. Kane looked at a map laid on the stone table. Every city marked in red was an alien stronghold. They used to fear those zones. Now they planned to march through them. They used poison, Kane said quietly. "Now we'll make it their prayer." Jules raised a cup filled with melted toxin crystals. "May their gods choke on it." Final line for suspense, and across the stars, as the last alien nerve bomb failed to explode, every commander heard the same three words echo through stolen speakers: "You trained us well." It began with footsteps. No tanks. No ships. No war horns. Just quiet footsteps marching in rhythm, echoing across the canyon walls of Uruk Prime, the last alien stronghold. Inside the city's great silver walls, alien generals watched from high towers. Their defenses were ready air mines, electric traps, toxin clouds, even sonic beams. But none of them mattered now, because the enemy approaching had already proven one thing: weapons don't work on them. High above the walls, cameras zoomed in. Thousands of humans were marching. No armored vehicles, no gas masks, not even protective suits. They walked barefaced, many shirtless, some barefoot, some scarred, but all of them calm. Confident. At the front walked Commander Elias Kane. On his left, Jules. On his right, Uni 9, the one who laughed inside the gas chambers. Behind them, Genesis operatives, survivors, volunteers, even children. Yes, children walked among them now, because humans were no longer afraid. They were something else now. Inside the alien command center, Supreme Leader Varn shook. With rage, activate the sonic wall. He screamed, launch the clouds, turn the air to fire. His generals obeyed. Turbines spun. Gas hissed. Speakers blared high-frequency waves that once made human soldiers collapse in seconds. But outside, the humans didn't even flinch. Some laughed. Some danced. Kane raised a single hand and the entire human force stopped. He turned slowly, took a deep breath, and walked forward alone. The walls of Uruk Prime rose like jagged teeth 50 meters high, glowing with alien light. Kane walked toward the main gate. It was sealed shut, guarded by automated plasma cannons. The system scanned his face, then froze. Alert! Human DNA unreadable warning. System error undefined mutation detected. Security override failed. Kane reached the gate and did something no one expected. He sat down. Cross-laid. And pulled something from his pouch, a bowl of raspberries. He began to eat. One by one. Slowly. Silently. Watching. Inside the control room. The aliens panicked. He's taunting us. He's communicating something. What do we do? Varn roared. He's one man. Fire everything. They did. The cannons lit up. Plasma exploded across the gate. The ground shook. Dust filled the air. But when the smoke cleared, Kane was still sitting. His shirt burned. His skin blackened but already healing. He raised his hand again, and thousands of humans began walking forward. The gates of Uruk Prime fell not from force, but from fear. The soldiers inside had deactivated the locks. They refused to fight. They fled. Some dropped to their knees, surrendering. Others ran, weeping. The walls had fallen before the enemy even touched them. Kane walked through the city streets. Now, calm and focused. No human raised a weapon. They didn't need to. Every alien who saw them chose not to fight. Because how do you fight something that learns from pain? How do you stop a species that evolves by dying? You don't. You surrender. At the center of the city stood the tower of the throne, a building made of crystal and metal. Kane entered. Jules and Unit 9 followed. Inside sat Supreme Leader Varn. Pale, bold, shaking. He looked up as the humans approached. Why? He asked quietly. Why are you doing this? Kane stepped forward. You used poison, gas, lies. You hunted us like animals. We gave you mercy. You gave us death. And now, we've made it ours. Varn tried to lift a blade, but his hand shook. Kane stepped closer and handed him the bowl of raspberries. You created this, Kane said. You turned a fruit into a weapon. Varn stared at it. This is madness. No, Jules said gently. This is evolution. Outside, the humans filled the city plazas. They didn't loot. They didn't scream. They stood still, waiting. Watching. When Kane stepped onto the throne balcony, the entire alien city looked up. He raised the bowl. Then poured the berries into the wind. Blue dust flew across the skyline. A message, a warning, and a promise. Final line for suspense across every alien world. Every screen lit up with the same final transmission. We are not your slaves. We are not your test subjects. We are not your food. We are humanity, and we are done kneeling. The throne room of Uruk Prime was silent now. The war was over, but the galaxy didn't know it yet. Kane stood at the balcony, the last of the raspberries turning to dust in his hand as the wind carried it over the city. The blue sparkles drifted through alien towers, through alleyways, through the lungs of people who once feared it. The same poison that had once been called divine death was now nothing but a reminder that humans don't break. They changed. In the cities beyond, alien broadcasts were taken over by a single feed sent from Kane's communicator. It showed the throne room, Kane, Jules, Unit 9, and Varn, the Supreme Leader, kneeling before them unarmed, beaten not by weapons, but by the simple fact that humanity no longer feared death. Every alien across every system watched in silence. This was not war. It was judgment. Kane stepped forward and looked directly into the camera. We did not come to destroy, he said calmly. We came to end something. He reached into a small pouch and pulled out one final blueberry. The first time one of your kind fed this to a human, he died screaming, Kane said. You called it cleansing. You called it justice. He turned to Varn, and now we offer it back, not as poison, not as revenge, but as a choice. He placed the berry on the floor. You can keep this war going, or You can plant this, water it, let it grow again, not as a weapon, but as something else, Jules added softly. Let it grow as a memory of what you did and what we became because of it, across the alien empires. The response was stunned silence. In one colony, a child picked a raspberry from a vine and didn't cry. In another, alien soldiers stood down, throwing their toxin rifles into fires. On the prison moons, guards unlocked doors. Prisoners walked free. In laboratories, scientists wiped their data drives, erasing decades of cruel human experiments. Because they all understood now, this wasn't about who won. This was about what they had created and what it had cost. In the ruins of an old alien cathedral, the alien priests met in secret. The scriptures warned us. One said that those who feed on death will rise as gods. We tried to make them suffer, the other replied. Instead, we baptized them. They knelt and placed a single rack seed in the soil beneath the altar and said nothing more. Back on Earth, for the first time in years, the skies were full of light, not fire. Not ships, but beacons of peace. Kane stood on a high ridge overlooking what was once a battlefield. The alien flags had been taken down. In their place stood no flag at all. Just a symbol, a single blueberry, carved into stone. Not a weapon, not a warning, just a mark. To remind them all. 1 month later, Kane sat at a table inside the rebuilt Interstellar Peace Summit. Leaders from across the galaxy had gathered. Some wore armor, some robes. Some arrived in chains, begging forgiveness, and in front of each representative, Kane placed a single bowl. Inside each bowl was one raspberry. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The message was clear. This was never about dominance. It was about understanding what happens when you push something too far, when you try to bury something alive, when you forget that the smallest seed can crack stone. The alien representatives looked at the berries. Some cried. Some reached out and touched them gently. Others did nothing. Kane smiled, then stood up. This is peace, he said. It tastes bitter, but it will feed your children. He walked out of the room. Outside, Jules waited beside Unit 9. How'd it go? Jules asked. Kane sighed. Better than I expected. They scared. They're awake now. He looked to the sky. And for the first time since the war began, it was quiet. No alarms. No guns. Just wind. And growth. Final closing lines, emotional and powerful, in the soil of 1,000 battlefields. Blue vines began to bloom again. The fruit was still dangerous, but now it was respected, not because it could kill, but because it once fed a species that refused to die. Humanity had changed, and so had the galaxy.